year, I guess this guys won the AFC Ajax, one of the
Yes,
international
yes.
competitions, right? I guess
Hmm.
that's where we started following up. Personally, me, right? I've been following football for a long time, 10, 12 years, just from the days of NFL, right? When
Hmm.
ONGC used to kind of have it. And Yeah, so that's where I guess I came to know about you guys having winning one of the
Understood.
competitions with AFC Ajax, right? So just tell about that and how did that happen?
Okay. So, to be honest, like when we were at the inception stages, I would just apply and reach out to anyone like that I would come across to. And one fine day, I came across such a competition called Reimagine Football, which was being hosted by the likes of UEFA, KNBB, CD Football Group, AFC IX, etc. And I saw there's a category called champion learning and performance. And by that time, our technology was fairly developed. It was being used by, let's say, a couple of I League clubs, I League second division clubs also. And it helped them to kind of qualify as well from I League second division to I League. And I really wanted to see where our technology stands with regards to the international requirements, international kind of standards. And I went on and applied. So there were around, say, 500, 600 startups that applied globally. And we were lucky to get selected in the top 10. And that kind of allowed me a chance to present our solution to the IAX data science team. And to be honest, they were really impressed with the unique approach we had taken towards kind of gamify the sports playing and development experience for up and coming youth players. And that was kind of the tipping point where they really liked it and they announced us as the winners. We got the award. And then we started a pilot project with them very soon. It lasted about a year. And after that, after several like match level testing, player level testing, a lot of algorithms that they wanted us to create and all. Once we delivered all that, it got converted in a commercial contract and they renewed as well. So right now we have been working, let's say, more than a year. Like we're in the second year in our commercial partnership with Ajax. It's really incredible to see like the levels of the youth teams, and now I really know like why they're called the epitome of youth development. Their players at an under 13 level, under 14 level are like immensely talented. They're immensely skilled, and it's an honor to be able to like provide them with our technology.
That is the best experience that anyone can have while
Sure.
working with the sports. Even with the footballing ecosystem, right? Because
Hmm.
they have a lot of knowledge, plus they have a lot of requirements that they want on the product to be converted. But yeah, I guess that's
True.
that's thing which would scale the product in a great way, I guess, right? And again, coming back to the product, right? There's two part of it. One is the mobile application for the athletes, and one is the TMS, right? So if you want to kind of give a brief of how that would work
Sure.
and what are those, it'll be good.
Sure. So how our technology works is basically we need a match video, the full match video. Once that has been uploaded, our AI algorithms, like the computer vision algorithms, identifies the players by their jersey numbers and it like tracks the players throughout the field. And through that, we collect all the event and the entire event data on a sequential format. So once we have that, there is two platforms, as you said. One is an admin application, which acts, let's say, as a centralized database of all their footballing activities for like coaches, technical directors, academies, clubs. So there you have all your matches, all your teams, all your players. You can go through a match analysis, player profiles, all those kind of things. And then we have a mobile app dedicated for the players because what we saw is that if you see, let's say, if you compare academics versus sports development. So in academics, let's say I want to be an engineer. So I need to have, let's say, good expertise or good understanding of maths, physics, etc. Right? So how do I validate that? By the results, like the scores that I receive after sitting on an examination. And after that, I have the leverage to kind of go through the answer sheet, see where I've done wrong, where there were like silly mistakes, where there were certain aspects of the syllabus I didn't cover. So this provides me with an understanding of where I stand and where the gaps are, and that allows me to bridge those gaps in a more accelerated manner. Now, if you look into any typical sports development, they're all the players, irrespective of their development curve, they go through the same kind of developmental routine. And hence, even if you're, let's say, strong in passing, weak in dribbling, and another player is weak in passing, strong in dribbling, almost
Yeah.
all of them goes through the similar kind of developmental regime. And that's why uh, if we wanted to provide them with a direct access of their performance, so that after the end of the game, in general, let's say when we play a game and there's no technology, most of the things that we refer to are through our in-match memories. And memories can be as biased as anything. So, I mean,
Yeah.
after the end of the game, you would really not like to remember the shots that you missed, but rather kind of reflect back on the goals you scored.
Goal
And that
runs.
is where our application, yes, and that is where our application kind of changes the entire aspect, because now once you play the game and the match is analyzed, now in the app you have everything, like all the stats, all the analysis, where you've done right, where there is scope of improvement. You have access to each and every video clip of all your actions. So it's no more memory based. It's now as quantitative as possible, with like availability of data. You can compare your today's performance with your seasonal average, with your team average. You can going ahead compare with certain benchmarks that we're creating on a state level, national level, international level as well. So this gives you like the same kind of empowerment that we see in, let's say, academics when we go through that answer sheet and identify the gaps. And that is the sole purpose of the Stephouse mobile app, where you have an
Okay.
understanding of your performance, you identify the gaps, you bridge it, and this in turn creates a digital resume for you, which you can share across, let's say, clubs and scouts who are looking for these talents. So this is in itself the Stephouse product. One part, as you said, is an admin product used by coaches or analysts of a club. And then you have the mobile app that is kind of empowering the players.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So, as I said, right, it is very important to just kind of reflect on the game that we played, right? We know, okay, we
True.
scored a fantastic goal, but then there's tons of goals that we could have missed, or the missed passes that we have done, right? That's something which is very important to analyze. Uh, that's a great way to for anyone to identify, okay, where are the gaps and how can we improve, right? It is very important in terms for the coaches as well of how the teams
Hmm.
are doing. An opportunity to deal with a lot of Indian clubs or the academies, or the academies from overseas, right? So what do you see the problem in those academies that is are in India?
To be honest, like I wouldn't say there is a problem within the academy itself, because right now, if you see, there are really great academies with great infrastructure. And
Mm-hmm.
we were doing an internal study of like performance of, let's say, an under 13, under 15 Indian, let's say KSFA Youth Premier
Correct.
League players versus, let's say, a potential Premier League player developing an Eredivisie youth leagues. And to
Mm-hmm.
our surprise, we saw that the levels of play, the levels of technicality, skills are not that much different. But when it goes up, let's say under 17, under 18, under 19, reserves, first team, it drops drastically. Whereas the gap between an under 13, under 15 youth player, I mean, an Indian youth player and an international youth player, like an European youth player, not that much. You go to the first team, the difference is like heaven and hell. So what we think is, after these players are getting developed and under 13, under 15 level, it is essential for them, for the ones who would really want to kind of pursue football as a profession, to move outside the Indian landscape and to continue playing at a level which is more competitive. Because you see, these players who are, let's say, the top players of under 13, under 15 level, when they go beyond the particular stage, first
Yeah.
of all, they don't find a pathway or neither the competitiveness that is required to enhance their skills even further. So after the age of, let's say, 14, 13, 14, it's kind of essential for an Indian player to move outside India and play, let's say, in a La Liga environment, in an Eredivisie environment, in a Youth FA Cup environment. And then that is the only thing that is going to take them to the next stage. Other than that, if you continue to play in I-League or let's say in ISL, to be honest, the competitiveness is not that much. There's a particular metric called match tempo, and which kind
Mm-hmm.
of allows us to understand how fast a match is being played. If you see the match tempo drastically drops down, let's say from a youth level to a super division level to an I-League or an ISL level. If you see in the other side of the, like, let's say, an international environment, these kind of metrics go up. So in European standards, what happens is after the youth scenario, you get in an environment where the competitiveness gets higher. Whereas in Indian youth scenario, after you're, let's say, a prodigy in the youth level, and you move to a, let's say, let's say, a national level, the competitiveness is not as much as needed for these players to develop on an international standard. And that is where I think the major gap lies. But what we now are doing is, let's say, we are creating age category wise benchmarks that allows us to understand these gaps like across multiple age categories. And that can in turn allow the coaches as well as the associations, the federations to understand what are the exact gaps that are needs to be bridged and how it can be done. So this can in turn result in an accelerated manner of talent development or at least skill and all those necessary technicalities development among the Indian players. And that is the biggest kind of gap, I believe, because you see infrastructure, everything is improving.
Correct. Yep. So yeah, I guess infrastructure is something that is being there's a lot of improvements, right? A lot of academies coming. They have their own grounds, their own facilities,
Mm.
and they're putting a lot of efforts to it, right? The the vision of your company, right? And it starts with the grassroots, right? And then it goes with youth level and then to the elite level, right? So coming to the grassroots level, right? There's a lot of academies or clubs that are working on this, right? And if they want to get the step out, right, what is the affordability and how can they get it, which is very important, right?
All right,
Because
all right.
if you see with
Mm.
grassroots level clubs, they don't make a lot of money, right? It's just the player fees, they what they get, and they from there they kind of get the money and do the business, right?
Sure. So you're speaking about affordability and accessibility.
Yeah.
So when we started this company, our major vision was to make this technology in sports, which is limited to, let's say, the top tiers, make it
Correct.
affordable, accessible, as well as comprehensible. So comprehensibility is another big factor because you see most of the clubs who can afford, they would get bombarded with, let's say, granular data, which is very difficult to interpret. So
Yeah.
comprehensibility is another big factor. So what we do now is like, since we are dependent on just the match video, if you're a
Hmm.
grassroots academy, what I mean, or any type of academy, let's say, all we need is your match video. As long as you can record it using, let's say, a DSLR, an iPhone, or let's say a couple of like AI cameras that has come up in the recent times, you're sorted. All you have to do is upload the match video in our platform and the lineup details so we can understand which player is wearing which jersey number, and that's it from your end. After, let's say, a certain period of cooling time, you'll have all the data in terms of match level performance, individual performance, everything. So now, when it comes to affordability, we look into, let's say, the grassroots as a more kind of engagement period among the players. We don't believe, let's say, the development in the grassroots period needs to be like as technical because in those, let's say, 6, 7, 8 years old, they first need to fall in love with the sport. So in the
Correct.
grassroots level, what we encourage the academies that we work with is to kind of broaden the pool of the players that they're catering to. It can be, let's say, someone a player is coming and playing once in a weekend or something like that. So grassroots is majorly, I would say, technical development on a very nascent level, as well as the majority part would be to cater to a very large audience of young players, joyful players who are coming just to get in, I mean, just to play the sport, love the sport. And now when you transition, let's say at a 11, 12 years age, that's where we come in. And there what we do is we help the coaches with selections in terms of technical data, as well as we allow them to understand the transition of these players through the different developmental stages throughout the journey of these players. And in this case, we are like in the Indian ecosystem, we are pretty affordable. Like the pricing that we have for our international markets in India, we give around 75% discount, and we almost do it at cost because in India, it's like a part of our vision. It's more long term for us because in India, our objective is to kind of develop these players who would in the next 10 years go and represent India in, let's say, Premier League, in Eredivisie, in La Liga, and Bundesliga. And that is the
Yeah.
vision that we have. So, in terms of affordability, as you can see, like we charge very nominal to the Indian academies. It's as minimum as, let's say, on a more elite level, around 500 rupees per player per month. That is kind of, and they have the option to kind of load it to their academy fees. We provide EMI, etc. options as well to kind of ease the cost implication that the academy would have.
Got it. Got it. I
And
think
here paying once, like they can access both the technology, the admin application, the youth app, the individual app as well. So we are trying to make it as affordable as possible for our Indian ecosystem.
got it. That makes sense because, yeah, as I said, right, it's initial stages of the academies that are starting, and they want to kind of have that technology as well as part of their
Hmm.
offering, right? Questions, right? Which is women's football. So again, as we see, there's a lot of development that is happening across the women's football, right? It could be in Karnataka or it could be in overall national level. But I guess one of the Karnataka clubs, which is Ken FC, was your client who were using
Hmm.
the platform, right?
Yes.
So if you want to kind of tell about women's football in general, few words on that.
Sure. So, women's football is very exciting because you see, like the Indian ranking in terms of women's football versus men's football, there's a huge gap. And the quality of players that we have are already playing in Europe. And that is
True.
something we're thriving to do in, let's say, in the men's side of the sport. So if you see in the women's side of the sport, we are already like maybe a decade ahead compared to the men's side of the sport. And that is why you see a lot of women player playing in like Europe, representing India
Mhm.
and those clubs. And what we see, the difference in performance is not that as great as, let's say, the men's side when it goes to, let's say, elite youth or let's say the senior stages. And to be honest, it's very exciting. I see a lot of clubs. For example, Apollon FC is one of our
Yep.
international clients, and previously Manisha used to play for Apollon. And from Apollon, we have heard like the standard of I mean, Indian women players are really great, and they're looking for more women's players to represent their clubs in the European stages. So
Yes.
I think right now, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, let's say, whatever we are doing, we are focusing much more on the men's side. Think in India, we should definitely look at the women's side. We should emphasize more on the women's side as well. A typical example would be US. So in US, men's soccer is not that great, whereas women's soccer they could be called like best in the world, right? So
Yep.
that really helps because if one side you are of that standard, the other gender would definitely come into picture and will provide much more limelight, much more limelight. So I think from a developmental standard point of view, from an international exposure point of view, women's football is much more exciting compared to the men's side of the game as of now for an Indian context. And I really hope that the state associations, the national federations would emphasize much more towards, let's say, increasing the participation of women in football in a much more larger scale at the grassroots level. So you see, like if you compare boys versus girls, there's a
Yes.
drastic difference. But if within that narrow scope we are able to produce such talents who are presenting in the representing in the European level, I think emphasizing more while not neglecting the men's side, the boys' side, would definitely result in a much more rapid growth of the nation in terms of footballing glamour, in terms of getting a place in that international footballing domain.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, as I said, right? I mean, women football is growing rapidly, and there's a lot of scope.
Mm,
I mean, we are already playing some of the best players in Europe.
yes.
There's a lot of opportunity as well, and some of the clubs are really doing well. Uh,
Yes, and
again,
I think in women's Indian women's team is definitely gonna play the World Cup much before the men's team. So we should eye that and develop the players accordingly.
yeah, I guess a lot of lot of. I guess it's more left to the association, right? To how they focus and how they work on it. I guess that's where more efforts are needed. Even if
Mm,
the club put effort, I guess association at the end of the day matters on how they pursue it.
true,
Uh,
true.
part, right? Step Out is one of the big partners with the KSFA. You kind of
Yes,
have the youth league, you kind of analyze the women's league, and you kind of
super division.
the super
Mm,
division, right? So, I
yes.
mean, we are pretty much interested to hear this out, right? How did this happen, and what are the things that you're doing on all these three leagues?
Sure, sure. So it happened like for last year we were approaching KSFA and Mr. Satya was there and he really liked the concept and he really loved that we as an Indian entity working with Ajax and all. And through that we got introduced to a lot of people within the KSFA umbrella. And they also really vied with our mission as well as vision. And right after that, we started. We started with the super division. We analyzed the entire league, and we saw a couple of really talented players over there. One
Yeah.
was definitely Vinith Venkatesh, who now kind of scored their debut goal. So the thing is, like all the masses, they know now Vinith Venkatesh after he scored that goal. But we knew he's gonna be a immensely talented player because the stats we have on him, the amount of let's say comparative performance analysis we did on him really showed. And there are a couple more you would discover them as soon as they break into the ISL space. And that's how it all started. And not just let's say the BFC team. There are many other talented teams out there within the super division space.
Yes.
We have seen a couple of talents as well. We were helping them to go to the next stage as well in terms of getting under the radar of ISL teams, I League teams as well, even I League 2 teams also. Because if you see, in most of the cases, the players who are bench warmers in I League are like playing in I League 2.
I like to.
Whereas the performance difference between, let's say, a case of a super division player versus an I League bench warmer is not that much. So we need this transition happening so that players can move up, those players can come
No.
down. Yes,
Yeah.
and accordingly, this pyramid will kind of rotate in itself, and we will see byproducts in terms of very talented players. And that is something we are trying really hard with the KSFA by analyzing their like super division and all. And that is something which is already in motion. And then we went on to analyze, let's say, the Women's League, where we have really great partners, such as, let's say, your Kemp FC. We have worked with Misaka United as well, who now plays in the
Oh,
IWL. Yeah.
great.
And Misaka United was actually one of the first women's club that we partnered with in the KSAV space.
Oh,
It's
nice.
yeah, and really, it's a really proud thing that we have kind of partnered with them, and they are now playing in the IWL thing. They gave a really hard competition to Gokulam Kerala's women's team also, which is let's say one of the best women's team in the Indian space. And
Yes.
then it has been a really interesting and exciting journey working with the women's side of the sport. And then when we down to the youth leagues, let's say we did under 13, under 15. This season we are also doing under 17. We are much more mesmerized because the level of the talent, it's I
Great
mean,
to
it's
see.
so impressive. And And to be honest, it saddens us more because we know most of these players will stop playing football because though they
Yeah,
don't have a visibility of the pathway. And that's
correct.
where we are working to kind of create certain connections, certain networking effect. So these talented players can definitely see a pathway through which they can go ahead. And even it's very important for the parents also because you see, in these stages, parents are the major decision makers. And if
Correct.
they can see that, okay, my son or my daughter is like so good that he or she can play at a, let's say, a La Liga level with a La Liga youth club. So we have a partnership with Rayo Vallecano as well in La Liga. And
Yeah.
with them, we are definitely looking to kind of identify a couple of talents from the Indian space, let's say under 13, under 15 level, and send them to, let's say, develop at La Liga or Ajax or let's say Apollon, all these clubs. I think that is definitely going to result in a much greater talent development, talent exposure. Who knows, someone would be so good, they might be playing. I mean, maybe Rayo Vallecano retains them and they give them a spot to play in the La Liga Youth Leagues. And that is
Yeah.
something it's definitely going to drastically change the way how Indian players perform. And to be honest, the talents are really, really exciting. I mean, there's no doubt on that. The parents are also so much engaged. They love their sons and daughters playing and they enjoy, they come, they cheer. And that is the kind of environment we should be kind of brewing so that this can help the ecosystem grow. Because at the junior level, at the elite, at the grassroots level, at the youth level, parents are very important and their enthusiasm means a lot. When we see like the parents using our application and they coming to us asking us question, it gives us much more joy because that's something we are kind of doing. I mean, we wanted to do in the Indian ecosystem space so that we can also empower the parents as well as the players with an understanding of where they stand and where they can be. And that is something the parents are also enjoying. We see now a lot of players that has used our application is now playing in the NCAA level in US, representing many colleges and their football teams also. That is more on an educational side. And then on a more footballing side, this year we are definitely looking to kind of send a couple of players in exposure trips in Spain and in Cyprus and in Eredivisie in UK, where they can compete in a much more higher standards and develop their own individual standards as a process.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much interesting, right?
Yeah.
Having that network because you guys talk day in day out with a lot of clubs, and that is the network that you guys have, and that's where you can come in and help these kids or the parents to have that exposure trips, right? Which would definitely help. And as far as parents are concerned, right? I mean, we have been there in the BFS for a lot of matches, and you can
Yes.
see them cheering their
Yes.
hearts out, right? I think just, I mean, we were in the sub junior championship, which
Hmm.
Karnataka won, right? And that was the BFS was a whole. The parents were cheering out loud, so that's very important coming in
True.
and
True.
understanding how their kids play, right?
And
And
to be
that
honest, here I would like to give I mean, kudos to KSFA. Like, I think no one else has developed the footballing ecosystem within a state like KSFA has done. And I mean, it's such a visionary step. I think Mr. Satya kind of uh,
started.
spearheaded that, and the rest of the KSFA bodies members are kind of taking it to the next level. And I think a lot of other state associations should definitely follow these steps that KSFA has taken because, I mean, as you said, sub junior champion. I mean, if you go back, let's say 20 years. KSFA was not there as, let's say, a pivotal part of the Indian
Nowhere.
ecosystem. Yes, and that is in itself is an achievement. And you see, like, I think KSFA is going to take it to the next level. And if the other state association follows, we are going to have a sporting nation very soon.
Following KSFA for a long time. We have been chasing them for a lot of things in terms of how they can work, right? But then in terms of youth football, there's no state FA comes close to KSFA.
True.
Nowhere, right?
100%.
Because you see the number of matches that the kids play, the number of competitive matches, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
that's not like a 10-1 or a 10-0, right? It's 1-1 or a 0-0. These kids compete with, and it's all of the high, like strong clubs also play each other. So that's very
mm.
good, and that's something with the data. I guess guys have a better view of how the things are happening, right? So I think KSFA for the future, definitely. I think a lot of players coming from the youth
Yes.
leagues where they have used your data to understand how they can bring their own things and
Hmm.
improve. Right? So that's great. Coming to the recent partnership, right, with BFC, I think one of the first Indian Super League clubs or the top tier clubs,
Yes.
you can say, right? So
Yes.
just tell us about that.
Yeah. So BFC, to be honest, we have been chasing, I don't know, since when, like maybe last 2, 3 years, we've been following up with BFC. And finally, through, I mean, here also KSFA is like one of the major reasons why we got BFC
Yeah.
because in the youth leagues, all the parents of BFC, Young Blues teams, had subscribed to our application. And that allowed their coaches to also have access. Their coaches are really, really forward looking. I mean, these grassroots coaches, they know so much. I mean, I really hope these coaches also gets a transition point to go to the next stage and let's say represent I League clubs, ISL clubs also. And that kind of allowed us to reach out to, let's say, the likes of Alvin, who's the first team match analyst, or Darren, who's like the sporting director. And I mean, our platform was good, but we didn't had the means to kind of get in touch with them and showcase our technology. And
Yeah.
KSFA and the Youth League and these partnership with the young elites and all that kind of just provided us with that. And Darren and Alvin has been very, very supportive. Like they really helped us partner with BFC. They streamlined all the difficult of the roadblocks that there could be. And now we are working with, let's say, their elite teams in Bellary, like the Red Bee Reserve team, their young elite blues teams, as well as we are reaching out to their entire BFC soccer school through this association. So going ahead till now, let's say the impact is still now whichever players were developing in the Bellady ecosystem, the coaches had utmost understanding of those players. But now
Yeah.
BFC taps on to let's say 2,000, 3,000 players in pan India. And using
Yes.
our technology, we're creating a centralized monitoring system where all these 2,000, 3,000 players will come under a single platform. And let's say you can compare Vinith Venkatesh's performance with, let's say, a player who's developing at Dehradun under the BFC soccer school scheme. And this gives the coaches as well as the players with profound empowerment because now the coach that is directly helping Vinith Venkatesh develop is also looking and tracking each and every match by match, action by action performance of a player in, let's say, Mizoram or Dehradun or the farthest corners of the country. This allows them to create a digital scouting platform and scout players from across the world and then compare them with, let's say, the benchmarks of Ajax or Rio or Apollon or even the MLS Next academies that we have now partnered with. And this is kind of the empowerment that we envisioned. And BFC is allowing us to kind of practically create a case study of that. And we are really, we are really grateful to BFC to kind of have faith in us, have faith in our technology, and allow us to collaborate them with them to kind of develop the elite players of the next generation.
Great, great. I think that's a great step, right? As you said,
Yeah.
BFC is looking out to expand to a lot of other cities, and they would definitely need some
Mm,
technology to understand, okay, how the kids are performing in a comparative manner, right? Because you can't just
yes.
compare without data, and that's very important.
True.
The next question, right, which is the overseas clients of yours. So you said AFC Ajax is one of the clients that you had. So how is it that
Hmm.
going?
No, Ajax, it's going really well. They have renewed our contract as well this year. Now we'll be working at least next 5 years with them. And they're so impressed with our product that within the contract itself, they have mentioned that if there's any potential client, club, etc., who wants to use our platform and needs a recommendation, they are keen to join in a call and recommend our platform to them. And we are kind of reserving these for the, let's say, the Premier League clubs, the best of the best. But that's kind of the relationship we
Yeah.
have with Ajax. Me and my co-founder had the opportunity to visit Ajax's youth center last year, last like 2 months ago. It's so
Oh,
impressive.
that's
Like,
great.
they have like 11 international standard fields in an area so wide. It's bigger
Yeah.
than any professional club environment within the Indian scope. And I believe, I mean, they
Yeah.
put so much effort, they put so much resources, they invest so much in the youth spaces. And to be honest, that is the result. I mean, that's really the reason why they develop so many players, continue to do so across, let's say, a decade. And more than that, last 20, 30 years, they have been their epitome of youth development. So Ajax is really going really great. We are also tapping onto other Eredivisie clubs within the Netherlands space. We now are tapping onto the Spanish ecosystem, the Cyprus and Greek
Exactly.
ecosystem through our partnership with Rayo and Apollon, etc. We have now also ventured into the US MLS ecosystem as well. We also have a partnered football association in Australia, Football New South Wales, where they're using
Oh,
our
that's great.
technology to develop their teams and players. So we are creating a global ecosystem that could empower the players with data-driven decision making, data-driven profile building, which in turn would allow, let's say, a worldwide digital scouting ecosystem right from a youth level.
Yeah, I think that's good to hear of an Indian company going and having those connections with the different parts of the world, right? I mean, we are good at technology, but again, you have different challenges that is coming in. I mean, personally,
100%.
me being in the startup world, I know that pain and how that would
True.
work, right? So but yeah, I mean, kudos to you guys working with
Thank you.
uh, such clubs, and I think we hope that you get a lot of more clubs as well. Is
Sure.
on the Karnataka football, right? I just want to hear your thoughts. You've been working with a lot of stakeholders here, the KSFA, the clubs, academies, even the women's team, right? Just want to hear your thoughts from your understanding, right, of how the Karnataka football is shaping up, and what do you see in the future?
No, I mean, the KSFA, as I said, is I think one of the most visionary state associations within our country. And the levels of development they have done in terms of, let's say, a very, very basic thing, the number of matches a youth player plays.
Yeah.
These things are like very, very important and essential in the overall growth of a footballing ecosystem because previously we used to complain a youth player does only plays 10 matches, how they will evolve and all. I think the clubs and academies we work in India, especially in the KCWA space, the player typically plays easily 35, 40 matches annually if you include competitive plus practice games and all. And that gives us the kind of data set to kind of compare them with the international pool of players and understand the gaps and all. So if other associations also follow these steps that KSF has taken and take the youth ecosystem first to the next stages, I think it will allow a much more kind of a talent development aspect as well as talent identification aspect for the ISL clubs also. Because as an ISL club, you don't really have, like you see, at this moment, the ecosystem that we have is not that much sustainable for an ISL club perspective. So for them
Correct.
to also go out and develop, do more things, adding to their own cost, it's very difficult. So if the state association allows to create such a youth environment and youth space that kind of fosters talent development, talent identification, it's easier for an ISL club as well. They can then join hands, like same as BFC has done with KSFA. Or you see there are many more clubs. Recently, you see SC Bangalore. They started, let's
Yeah.
say, maybe 2 years ago, and now they're in I League. And the level, the way they're playing, they have created the entire pathway for their academies to play in Super Division, then to I League level. And this is something which the state association can only allow. A state association can only help to create. And I think KSFA is doing a tremendous job at that. And we are, let's say, very proud to be able to partner with them, to be able to be a part of this developmental process that is being created in this part of the country.
Yeah, I think that's one of the good steps that KSFA done. I think much credit goes to Satya sir and
Yes.
also Harris to backing him up, right? Which is very important. Without the backup
Mm.
from the president and the whole association, I
Mm.
guess it would be difficult for Satya as well. But I guess
Yes, yes.
a great step that they have done. I guess that's where I guess we'll see a lot of footballers coming up and playing for the different clubs and the whole the nation as well, right? So
Mm.
so this is what we just wanted to discuss, right? How you guys are shaping up and how you guys are helping the whole ecosystem. And I think what we wish is all the best for your journey, right? And also hope that you kind of grow within the nation as well as within the international space. Help a lot of more kids, parents, and the coaches in developing the football game as well as the data analytics part of it, right? Zach, I guess
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. It's been pleasure
No, it's my
hosting
pleasure.
you,
It's my pleasure.
right? So I guess I mean there's as I said, right? So there's a lot of thoughts that you guys have, a lot of understanding that you guys have, which I guess it's difficult for us to kind of understand from that space. But yeah, thanks for sharing the thoughts. I mean, we'll be happy to host you again once the season ends,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Where you kind of grow and tell us a lot of other stories coming from your part of the world.
Sure, sure, sure. Definitely, definitely. It has been a real pleasure for me as well, Praveen. Thank you so much for inviting me over. I would love to be a part of your podcast anytime, whenever you please. So do let me know. It will be my pleasure to share
Sure.
our story, our thoughts, and discuss with you regarding how Indian football can develop to the next level.
Yeah.